Thank you, Mike. So for years, this lady has been involved in a group of people that rescue ferrets. Do you know what a ferret is? They're weasels. And every year they have a fundraiser to raise money for the rescue mission for ferrets. And at the annual convention, which is at the VFW Hall in Lockport, they have a blessing of the ferrets. Yeah, they do. And for years, they have asked me to come and do the blessing. And luckily, for years, I have an excuse, which is usually my brother's in town. And he lives in Virginia, so he's never. But so finally this year, I said, Ethel, I'm going to come and do the ferret blessing. So I pick up Q, and we go to the VFW Hall and walk into this room, and it is just full of ferrets and interesting people. I mean, there's a whole other world out there that we don't even know exists. I haven't seen that many weasels in one place since my last family reunion. It was just unbelievable. So I'm just going around, and boy, they're so cute, and they're soft, and they're just persnickety little things, though. They're not that friendly, especially if you're a stranger. And so we had the blessing of the ferret, so people are lined up along the room to get there, and I take each ferret and hold it in the palm of my hand and say, you are a creature of God, and God will always hold you in the palm of his hand. And then I just thought to myself, they love their ferrets. And they nurture them, and they care about them. And I got a little sentimental because that made me miss my dog, Harley. Harley used to lay at the front door of the church for years, and when you came in, he would greet you. If I wasn't there, Peggy would come in and say, Harley, where's your dad? And he'd go, we'd point in the right direction. And then I got this cat named Monty at home, and Monty's been dying for 7 years, but just gets stronger by the day for some reason. And every morning I get up and Monty's right there at the bowl going, rah, rah, wanting to get fed. And Monty has a good life. And I was thinking of you and your dogs, you and your cats, you and your pets. We treat them with such gentleness and goodness and dignity. And as I left that place, I was thinking, we treat them so gently. How can anybody ever, in the history of the world, dream of intentionally hurting somebody else? Why would you hurt a child? Why would you bomb a nursery in Ukraine? Why would you do anything to harm one of God's children? If we can treat our animals like that, who are God's creatures, that same kind of love should go to everybody that we meet as much as we can. And it made me think of the majesty of God's creation. I saw the sunrise this morning, and I thought there's no excuse for hurting another person. I think of Heartland Children's Home as where we met Q for the first time, and some of you have been there. There's a little baby that just came there last week named Andre, and he was abused by his dad. And who knows how long he has to live, but he is treated there just with such gentleness and kindness, because however much time he has left, they want that time to have dignity and purpose and gentleness and kindness. And I'm thinking of many of you. How many times have many of you put your life on the back burner to take care of somebody in your family? How many of you have caregivers for somebody in your family, and that caregiver gives it all to make sure that loved one is taken care of from beginning until the end? This morning I'm thinking of Bill Colgan, I've talked to him before. He lives in Hawaii. Most of you have never met him because he's only been here a couple of times. But he went to Hawaii after he retired to take care of his mother. When his mother died, he brought her back here for a funeral that I did. Now he's in Hawaii and he needs caregivers himself. And every Sunday, whatever caregivers are there, they gather around the kitchen table on the TV and they watch our service together. Because we are his church. He supports our church, he loves our church, and his caregivers want to be a part of that healing. I remember in the past few months going to visit Jay over at his house, and his wife is here today and had his funeral on Friday. And whenever I went there, the caregivers did more than just take care of him. They were a spiritual part of his life. Whenever we prayed and had communion, we gathered around the kitchen table and shared the Lord's Prayer and the bread and the wine because they gave everything they have to make sure he had that kind of comfort and kindness. How can we possibly justify killing somebody else, especially the innocent victims of violence? That's why next weekend is, I didn't know if you knew, it's Caregiver Sunday. And there's a form you can fill out over there about a caregiver that you want mentioned in the prayers. You might wonder how it got started. It got started at All Saints Lutheran Church on Thursday morning. It's now a national holiday. But caregiving is kind of what Jesus and God and our church is all about. I'm sure when you come to church in the morning, and maybe when you go to bed at night, maybe when you start another day, there are certain things in your heart and on your mind that just are important to you and maybe bother you and maybe make you stay awake at night. I can share mine and you have yours. Every single day, I think about Ukraine. And I know there's all kinds of problems in the world. Ukraine is not the only place. But I've become good friends with the priest just around the corner. His father and his brother are still in Ukraine. Last week, there was a bomb that hit a residential facility, and adults and children were killed. And I just can't get that out of my guts and out of my head and out of my heart. And yet we will continue to pray for them because they're our brothers and sisters. Then there's the Vietnam War. You know, we have many Vietnam veterans in our church, and the Vietnam veterans are getting older. And I remember when there was the draft, and I just, it makes me feel guilty to this day. We're sitting in the basement of the frat house having a beer, hoping our number does not get called, while our classmates are going to Vietnam and getting killed. And I've never forgotten that, and that's why it's so important to honor our vets. Forgetting that there were 58,000 soldiers killed in Vietnam from our country. But not only that, 300,000 veterans from Vietnam have died because of exposure to Agent Orange. And many of them to this day do not get their full benefits. And so it's important to pray for our brothers and sisters because they were the ones that somehow went there to defend our freedom. And then, of course, I'm sure all of you have friends or family that are suffering. And when you're with somebody in your family who's suffering, it's like you just want to take a hunk of their suffering, take it out of their guts and put it in yours so that you can share it with you. But you really can't do that. All we can do is care. It's like one of my Vietnam veterans friend told me years ago, and now he has passed. He said, Don, don't talk to me about Vietnam. You weren't there. You do not know what I went through. And he's exactly right. But I said, Carrie, I can't walk in your combat boots, but I can walk with you and love you and care about you and pray for you because that's who we are. I can't do it for you. You did something I never had the guts to do, but you've got to know that we all care. It's interesting, in the second lesson for today, or the first lesson, there's a beggar at the temple and he's collecting money and he's lame and he needs help. And Peter goes into the temple and the beggar wants something and Peter said, I have no money. All I can do is give you all that I have. And as soon as he heard that, it gave him strength. All I can do is give you all that I have. And he started to give up. It took him a long time. But because he knew Peter would do that for him, he was able to walk again. We may not think that we have much to give, and we may not think that what we have to give is not enough. But we are called to give it all. Ukraine, Vietnam, somebody who suffers, the love bucket, whatever it is. And we may not be able to fix it or cure it, but we can give it all that we have. And that may just give someone else the strength to get up and walk. And that little light that's inside of the styrofoam cup, it may get old and it may get weak, but it's always going to be there because people like us are called to give it all that we have. Amen. If you're able to rise for the creed, please do.